Cheers.
One of our contacts, Jill, who has been amazing for the blog, he has helped set up some of the last Wednesdays. A lot of you really enjoyed the Avasolo that we did. You guys didn't know a lot about the Mexican whiskey and were very interested. Sent us a couple of emails to ask a little bit more about that. So that is all thanks to Jill. So that is super cool. Thank you again for that, Jill.
Of course.
We are going to go ahead and run our intro reel, and then we're going to learn about Jill and what she does and what it's like to work with all of these distilleries and reach out to blog individuals like ourselves and figure all that out. So let's run the intro reel. Thank you again, Jill, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Excellent. So, Jill, thank you again. Jill has actually personally set up, what is it, Jill, now? Four separate people for us to speak to on
Maybe
Whiskey
Greg
Wednesday.
didn't come back from the reel.
Oh, I didn't come back from the reel?
Greg, can you see me?
I can see it. Can you see me?
Jill, can you hear me?
Yep. And I can see you, so we're all good.
Can you see Greg?
No.
No? Hold on.
Up.
Am I back?
Can you see him now?
Nope.
Can you hear him?
No.
Greg, I can see you. That's strange.
Huh.
Anyways, well, Will, in that
Will?
case, ask some questions.
There we go.
All right. Why don't you, Greg, why don't you jump out and jump back in? See if that'll work.
I did. Jill, can you see me now?
Yeah. Now you're on screen and I can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Well, now that we've got that all sorted out, we have not run into that issue before. So, anyways, but you've done what, like four separate interviews set up for us, which we greatly appreciate. Opportunities to get to know new brands, new distillers, and share their passion with us. We appreciate you, but you've taken a lot of time and effort to help us out and to get people on our Whiskey Wednesday live stream, which every Wednesday is kind of a tall order, and you have made it easy for us and really taken a lot of time to organize that. We appreciate you for that. What is it like to have to organize all of that stuff for people?
No, honestly, it's been great working with you guys. So I'm glad that everyone's been interested and that we've been able to kind of showcase a few new and interesting whiskeys. So yeah, it's really cool, not to just kind of jump into what I do, but it's been interesting because I primarily come from a travel background. So I started in the PR industry working with hotel brands, cruise lines, Disney Parks and Resorts was one of my clients. So I was doing that for about 6 years. And then I decided that I wanted to do something a little bit different, kind of explore a few different areas of PR. And then I wound up at Rachel Harrison Communications, which has been life-changing experience. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity because then I got to work, like you said, with amazing brands and distillers and people like you. So it's a very exciting career.
Thank you very much.
No, of course.
How do you get so you have a portfolio of spirits that you handle, and you have a portfolio of spirits that you help set these kinds of things up for. Do they reach out to you? Do you reach out to them? Like, how do you get connected with the distilleries?
I mean, there's a few different ways. Sometimes it's kind of a cold call. Sometimes there's always connections. Basically, in PR, you're in the business of networking, whether it's with media, bloggers, distillers, brands. It's always that you're out there meeting people, which is one of the exciting parts of our job. I think that's kind of the allure of it, was that you have to be a big people person to be in this industry. But that's what makes it exciting. So yeah, it's kind of a different array of ways.
Uh-oh.
removed that happens to.
You're back. We can hear you. We lost you for a second.
Sorry, spotty connection in Jersey. But yeah, so it's always an interesting avenue as to like how you get brands or how you get to know people. You know, but I think that's kind of one of the things of our agency is that our boss has been in, you know, spirits for about 20 years now. So she knows almost everyone. And then therefore we know almost everyone. So it's really cool to make those connections and find those people. But yeah, and I mean, our portfolio isn't just whiskey based. So it's interesting because I came in knowing legitimately nothing about whiskey, except that I like to drink it. You know, so I went from learning the industry to now spearheading most of our accounts. So like you said, Blackened Whiskey was one of ours, Abasolo Ancestral Corn Whiskey is another one. Law's Whiskey House, which will be on, you know, hopefully soon, is another one. So it's really interesting, and all of these brands have such incredible stories that it's really exciting to dive deep and learn more about it firsthand from the people behind it.
So I mean, essentially, you're a bridge between the distillers and the people who are not just going to, you know, have the whiskey to sell. I mean, do you guys have relationships with bars and liquor stores, and are you guys are working to get it in? So you guys work as the bridge between the distiller and the end location where the consumer will go to get that whiskey. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're really the vessel to kind of tell those stories. You know, so I like to say that it really all kind of works hand in hand. So, right, we want to let consumers know about the product using our influences with media and bloggers and influencers and whoever else have you within the industry, you know, which then more people know about it. So then that helps to drive sales. So it all really works in tandem together to really help promote some of these brands. But yeah, it's really more of just we, you know, figure out the ins and outs of everything. We kind of look for those cool different stories or the personalities behind the people making the product. And then we get to tell those stories to people in new and exciting ways. So it's cool to break down the facets of a brand. So, you know, sometimes it's focusing in on the master distiller and how cool they are. Sometimes it's focusing in on the grains that are used in the product. Sometimes it's focusing in how the bottle was designed. So it's really incentive to kind of find those stories and dig into that brand and look at it from a new perspective that, you know, when you get so close to something, sometimes it's hard to pull yourself back and look at it objectively. So they're so close to their products that it's hard for them sometimes to get outside of that realm. So it's nice that we get to provide that fresh look of like, you know, this is a really cool piece, or, you know, sometimes it's even looking beyond just who your executives are. And it might be that person that, you know, is the janitor or something, you know, that's really cool to kind of look at and dig deep into.
So before the world turned upside down, I imagine you got to spend a lot of time at so many different distilleries.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to a few, and actually, you know, a lot of our brands started with us during the pandemic, interestingly enough. You know, but it's been kind of a new creative way, because I think that's also not only for our perspective to go down to the distillery, see how all the production process works, but also to bring, you know, other people there to kind of get those behind the scenes look too. So it's been, like you said, a completely new world to introduce those parts of the brand to people, you know, which is exciting in and of its own way, as well as it is challenging, because firsthand experience is always the best option, but it's like, what do you do when you can't have that, you know? Or what do you do when you can't go to the tasting room or your favorite bar or something? So,
yeah,
you know, it's an interesting time, I think, for everyone.
Right. Well, tell us, so you have been able to visit a few, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about one of your, what's been one of the better experiences you've had, you know, for whiskey related?
Right. That's a really hard one. You know, I think it's all just really hard. I don't want to be too biased or anything, you know, but I think Law's Whiskey House in Colorado is very interesting. just because they all use heirloom grains in all of their products. So they can tell this deep story about how they restored some of these grains from extinction. You know, they were very low yield, so it was very hard to produce. And they found these families, worked with them to kind of cultivate these grains, keep them going. So it was really a unique tour to kind of see how those different aspects of everything happened, you know, and how they were taking into account that they wanted to preserve the Colorado terroir and introduce new people, you know, without making it too robust or too crazy for certain palates. So I think that they have a very, very interesting story. And then the distillery just kind of highlights those aspects of it. You know, but one distillery that I do want to go to is Abasolo, which is in Mexico.
Well, we should all go together. They invited us.
Yeah,
We'll take a group tour down together.
Sounds good.
But yeah,
Greg, are you locked in a dungeon down there? What are you doing?
I'm moving to somewhere that's a little bit more bright. I don't know. I guess
So yeah, I mean, I understand what it's very difficult. Obviously, you don't want to be biased, and we don't either. We love whiskey, and we've been to so many different places, and I really tend to like something about each one of them.
mm-hmm.
It's just always neat to see, you know, some of them have different. It's just a nuance of something that just tends to stand out about that particular place or tour, or just, you know, you go to a Buffalo Trace and it's overwhelming. I mean, there's so much history. There's so much behind, and all the old buildings, you know, and the history behind them. You go to a Maker's Mark, and the fact that they do something from start to finish. And if Caesar has us down to Mexico at Abasolo, you know, that's a whole different experience. So hopefully he will.
Yes.
yeah, but I mean that's super cool, and it's interesting that you say that with the laws, because that seemed like it was Abasolo that we talked to last week's thing too, was, you know, really focusing in on what they're making the whiskey out of. You know, you hear so many people talk about the process, they talk about the aging, they talk about the types of barrels they use, they talk about everything past the grain.
Right.
But you hear a lot of people talk about the grain, the corn, you know. And so to see that you're repping a lot of brands that really focus on kind of the inverse of what other companies focus on. I mean, Abasolo didn't talk at all about, you know, the aging process, the type of barrels that they use, but they talked all about the heritage, the care that they take in where they source the base of their whiskey from,
Right.
where you can get that, the type of farmers that they find that from. And so it's really cool that you're repping a bunch of brands that seem to really care about the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to making a whiskey, because if, you know, that's what it's made out of at the end of the day. You can put it in a barrel, but the juice that it's made out of is still made of those grains. And it seems like that is something that people take the least amount of attention to talk about.
Yeah. You know, and that's not to discredit any of the other brands out there, you know, but like you said, I think that it is kind of cool and unique, and we're very fortunate to have brands that do care so much about just integrity, different spirits, really, is what it comes down to. You know, a lot of them are preserving either heirloom grains, or they're making a testament to their country, or, you know, they're trying to bring things to life that haven't been done before. So in that aspect, I think we're very fortunate to have brands that are so passionate and care so much about every aspect of the process, where, like you said, you know, it's easy to kind of get in with some of those brands that either have a namesake or have clout within the industry, and you know, get in there and say like, okay, they're doing a new launch, or they have a new finishing barrel, or whatever else it is, you know. But it's cool to really dive into these brands that are bringing something new to market, or doing something completely different out there, and really bringing that up for them, and building up that rapport.
So you're talking about virtual tastings. Or you were talking about tastings, and now we're doing everything virtual. So are you guys doing a lot of virtual events and sending samples out and doing tastings that way?
Yeah. We joke that we could probably work for Amazon right now and be, you know, on par with people that have been there for about 10 years. But yeah, you know, it's, like I said, it's interesting because obviously the pandemic has been challenging on so many levels, but there's also been kind of these silver linings where, now we can do new ways of working, right? So before it was bringing a master distiller, or was bringing somebody to a tangent or like a physical area so that they could do tastings or that they could go to events and meet with people. Whereas now, I think that'll come back when everything kind of goes to normal, whatever that new normal is. But it's insightful to see that even if we can't facilitate something like that, where it's an in-person meeting, this is an option, for the foreseeable future. So if you can't travel to California, or if you can't, go internationally and your product sold there, it's still nice that you're able to connect. I think a lot of us are getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue at this point because we just want that social interaction, but it is cool, like something like this where you guys are in Tampa and Florida, I believe, and I'm in New Jersey. It's cool that we can connect over a platform like this and talk about whiskey and booze.
Because it is kind of one of those bittersweet things, because we have the opportunity over something like this to talk with people, and I think this whole thing was kind of spurred out of the fact that we didn't have the opportunity to meet people like we do right now, and getting used to that type of format, and being able to connect like this. But it's great because now, for Whiskey Wednesday, we're able to connect with people all over. And I guess it may, I would imagine it makes your job easier because it's easier to connect people who aren't, in the same area. Now that we all are used to this and used to watching stuff on Zoom and watching stuff on Facebook and YouTube and live, it's got to be, it's got to open up a whole new avenue for marketing now that people are used to this type of thing.
Yeah. It was kind of funny to figure it out in the beginning, and I think there were so many technological challenges that it almost kind of seemed like it was this massive undertaking. But I think now that people have gotten used to all the different platforms, the way to use the different platforms to the best of their abilities, like you said, it does open up a completely new world for so many reasons. And, while in person, I think is always the ideal, because I think, there's more conversation that happens. There's more of a chance to talk further about a brand, on a really personal level. But like you said, I think that this is kind of a great option for anyone that can't meet in person, or anyone that you've been wanting to meet with that, either for circumstances or scheduling hasn't worked out. So it's been interesting in that aspect. And then, I think, like you said, it's kind of, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future, because obviously I think people are going to want to go back to in-persons, but like I said, I think that then it becomes this mixture of, there's some events, but then there's also some virtuals that happen, but then there's also some, one-on-one meetings that can also happen. So I think that this just kind of expands the horizon.
Well, let's talk about some of the brands. So obviously Abasolo, Blacken. Tell us about some of the other whiskey brands that you represent.
Yeah, so we have a whole catalog. So we also represent Cooper Spirits, which is a family-driven spirits line. So that was started by Robert J. Cooper, and they offer slow and low rock and rye. So it's like a testament back to 1800s, when it used to be a pharmaceutical drink, funnily enough. But yeah, they've revamped the take on a rock and rye and canned it. So it's in this like little 100 milliliter. So that's one of our brands. Then we also have Napogue whiskey. So they are a Scotch from our, excuse me. So they're one of ours. Like you said, Abasolo, Blackened, Laws, who will hopefully be on soon. So that's kind of our whiskey portfolio, but then delving out further into the spirits realm, we also have a few tequilas. We have a mezcal, so it's interesting to see also too, I think, even within the spirits category, there's so many different brands and ways that people function and operate. Whereas like you would think it's just kind of a categorical thing, where you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. But it's very cool to see how certain brands want to position themselves, or how they want their product to be talked about, or, who wants to be more cocktail focused versus what brands are meant to be, enjoyed straight over ice, or maybe with like a little drop of water to open up.
So So that is super cool. So let's dive into you a little bit. What is your favorite whiskey cocktail? I don't think we've ever asked that on the blog. We should start asking that. We're talking about
every time. Yeah.
We talk about how we need to come up with like a couple questions that are like staple questions for you.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite cocktail?
You know what? I really like a Manhattan, but I think it's more so because then you can kind of gauge the bartender's like skill set. I feel like that's a really big testament when you go to a bar is ordering a classic cocktail, seeing how well it's made, and then you can kind of venture out from there. But if they can't do that well, then you're like, all right, drinking.
And what's funny is Manhattans are very polarizing for me. I don't know, Will, if you've experienced this, but I'll order Manhattans every now and again, and they're either great or they're like.
It's like Jill said. I mean, you're absolutely right. You go and you can tell by the way they're making, whether it's a Manhattan, an old fashioned, any kind of classic cocktail. I mean, if they break out the sugar packets, run, right? But
I've seen some shady made cocktails in my time.
I don't think I've ever had anyone break out sugar packets, but
yeah, not good.
I think I would
not good. Don't drink it.
I've seen the people like that were in a craft bar, and you order a Manhattan and they pull out like the what is it, the little like margarita mix, like blank bottle, with a tape across it that says Manhattan mix, and I'm like, oh, that's not good.
It was made by the A bartender earlier that day.
One bartender that's like, yeah, just put this in with a little bit of whiskey, you'll be fine. Just make sure that they drink a copious amount before they try it.
Or take a shot with it.
I've always found that cocktails get better the more of them that you have, even if they're made the exact same.
It's crazy how that works. And then when you start throwing cask strength in there, forget about it.
Yeah. It's good, man. Luckily, so Will's out of Nashville.
Okay.
I'm out of Tampa. So between the two of us, we've got some spots that are pretty good craft areas. Will, what's your haunt? Something 401 Kitchen?
404 Kitchen, Gertie's Bar. Yeah, if you're ever in Nashville, there's some great spots, but I really enjoy 404 Kitchen. They've got a wall of whiskey, and it's beautiful. So definitely stop.
I don't know if you guys have seen. So I come here to Davidoff a good amount, and then I go to Repeal 18 a lot. And Tampa's pretty good. They make an insane cocktail. I mean, there's some places that make really good ones, and then there's some places, obviously I won't mention, that make some not great ones. But what I like about Davidoff is, I don't know if you guys can see down there.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
That's their whiskey wall, and that's not including the stuff that they have in like the back that you order off of like the special menu.
It's fair.
So they've got some crazy stuff here. They had what was it? They've got like a couple of Pappy 23s down in the case and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's pretty cool. But they make good stuff. They make a good bourbon smash, which is something that I'm very, very on. Like, if you make a good bourbon smash, great. If you make a bad bourbon smash, it tastes like grapefruit juice and like
and sugar. So I was going to say, are you guys more bourbons or rye fans? Or
that's a tough question. Yeah, but I think I may lean a little bit more towards bourbon, appreciating bourbon. But Will is a huge appreciator of good ryes. Not just any rye. Will can sniff out some of the best rye. He goes to a couple of these barrel picks. He'll stand in line and get the good ones, and when we get together a couple times a year, he'll pull them out and he's like, this rye, and this rye, and I'll try them. And I'm very, very picky on my ryes, and the ones that Will gives the Will seal of approval to are always phenomenal.
What I like about rye over bourbon is, for me, rye just seems to come of age much faster than a bourbon does. For me, a bourbon, 7 to 10 years. If it's not 7 years, it's not that it can't be very good. It's not always. It's hit or miss. But with rye, I mean, I feel like 7 years is just a perfect spot for rye. 6 or 7 years. I mean, it seems to just really come to age much faster than a bourbon does. But yeah, there's lots of really good ryes out there. There's lots of great bourbons out there. I just, I can't say that I would lean towards one or the other. They're all so good.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, it really at this point, we get sent a lot of samples and we try a lot of things. We are as close to the borderline of alcoholism as you can get without alcohol, as much as we like to imagine that.
Professional alcoholism at that point.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're fun, but yeah. It depends on who you ask. But no, all joking aside, I mean, the thing is that we try a lot of stuff, and there are some things that there are ryes that they'll or even bourbon. They're like, yeah, this is aged 10 years. It's great. It's a $200 bottle, blah, blah, and we'll try it. And we're like, dude, I've had like a 5-year, I've had a 5-year bourbon that is amazing. Like I've had an Old Elk that'll kill this 12-year bourbon.
Right.
And it's like, we've gotten to the point where people are so proficient and they've honed their craft so well that they know that that's the time to pull it to get this optimal flavor. And then you'll get other people that just sell the age, and it's one of those things. We're at the point where whiskey is such an art. Scotch, rye, bourbons, American whiskeys, Canadian whiskeys, all of these things are such an art at this point that, back in the day, stuff was so harsh because it was made in crude distilleries, set up in towns, on westward expansion. And you were drinking just harsh moonshine at that point. But we've gotten to the point where we've fine-tuned all of these little things along the way that, it went from, whiskey used to be something that you needed to have for survival. It was how you distilled calories and you preserved grains that were going to, you preserve grains that were going to go bad for winter, and you needed a source of calories, and you needed something to make you feel better and stave off the cold and keep your morale up. And we're not, obviously we're not there anymore. We have AC, we've got heaters, and so now it's an art. And so you've got people that you've got marketers, and then you've got distillers, Yeah. And hopefully the people that you set us up with are distillers. But you get some people that they do the marketing. They buy it from a third-party source, and it's 8, 9, 10-year aged, and all they're doing is they're buying the age, they're slapping their label on it, and they're tossing it off. And it's really cool that bringing this all back around to what we're talking about. It's really cool that you are working with so many brands that are not focused on slapping a label on something and tossing it on. You guys are focused on these people that are so. They're so focused and they're so critical on where these things are coming from and how the heritage is built for this whiskey and what those building blocks are, that you're working with brands that care. They care about
right.
I find that very cool.
Yeah, no, like I said, we're very fortunate in that aspect, and I think that also kind of, again, just applies to the whole spirits, industry. Because how many times do you have a wine where they're like, it's a $200 bottle, and you're like, okay, I feel fancy drinking it, but like I'd rather get my $2 Chuck, and that's a much better night.
Can we have a moment to just talk about $2 Chuck and how great it is?
It's amazing.
Thank God for Trader Joe's. Right?
They're dangerous though. It's like a Target. You walk in and they just tell you what you're buying. You're like,
I'll go into Trader Joe's. I'm like, I need 2 or 3 things, and I walk out with a cart. And my wife is like, "What are you doing? We have so many groceries right now." I'm like, "But it all looks really, really good."
Yeah, no, it's bad. And then it's Netflix now. I'm just working my way through it, drinking whatever's in my glass. So.
Well, excellent. Well, we appreciate you being here and taking the time to meet with us. Is there anything that you want to tell to our followers we're going to have this on Whiskey Culture. We're going to have this on YouTube. It'll be a podcast coming up. Is there anything that you want to tell these people about whiskey, about the heritage, about who you're working with?
Yeah, no, thank you guys again for having me on. This has been fantastic. So, really appreciate that. But yeah, I guess just if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. It's jp@wearerhc. And then if you want to check out our website, we have all of our clients listed. So it's just wearerhc.com. But yeah, I'm, available and happy to answer any questions. Yeah, this was amazing. So thank you guys.
So if you're a bar, and one last thing I want to ask, if you're a bar or a liquor store or something, should they just email you? How do they get in touch with you? How do they learn more about your brands? Is it just is it a reach out, or is there a form or something like that?
Nope, it's a reach out. You can email me directly. So that goes to me. We also have a contact form on our website, or then we have our phone number listed and everything. So yeah, whatever way anyone wants to get in touch, we're available.
Well, excellent. I want to say, Will, you have any last questions?
No, I really enjoyed talking to you. It's really cool, and I love the brands. Thank you so much for getting us connected with so many different cool people and distilleries.
Yeah.
Of course. No, our pleasure. Thank you guys so much. I'll definitely have to send you both ryes and bourbons that we have in store. So
yeah,
we'll review them.
Happily accept the samples.
And any distilleries who are listening to this, we will review for whiskey. Well, thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate it. We wouldn't keep doing what we were doing if you guys weren't interested in it. We're glad that you guys like to share the passion. We'd like to thank Davidoff for giving us this cool spot and a place to host the Whiskey Culture live stream. Jill, thank you guys so much for hooking us up. Will, for always being awesome and tuning in from Nashville and sharing your expertise. I know you're busy. We're brothers, but I know you've got a family, you've got a life, you've got whiskey to go try yourself. Thank you for always tuning in and being a part of Whiskey Culture and being a great partner. Jill, we look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Same here. This has been great. So thank you guys.
Excellent. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope to see you guys next week at Whiskey Wednesday with Whiskey Culture, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. And you guys have a great night. Cheers.